Hey everyone, it's Linda with Embroidery Legacy. In this Font Magic video, I'm going to show you how to create double raw edge appliques using John's ESA fonts. And I'll show you how to save SVG files so you can cut out that fabric on your cutting machines. Come on, let's get started. In this Font Magic video, I'm going to show you how to use the Banhart font to create a double raw edge applique. So I'm going to select it on the font drop-down box. John always includes the smallest recommended size for his fonts. This one is 25 millimeters. You can go smaller, and I have certainly been known to break a few rules as far as sizing goes. So this time we're going to go 60 millimeters. I'm going to type in 60, and in the text box I'm going to type in Dog Mom, D-O-G-M-O-M. And when it comes up on screen, you'll notice that the letters have a big space between them. We can come down into the advanced features, and you'll notice that the letter spacing is defaulted for this particular font, and it will be different for each font based on the shape of the letter. This one is 6 millimeters. I'm just going to put 0 in here to bring the letters closer together so they look like they're cursive. I also want to bring the mom closer to the dog, and in order to do that you have to use the Reshape tool, and the hotkey is H on your keyboard. Here's the baseline for the font, and notice that there are pink diamonds above each and every letter. If I right click on this M's pink diamond, notice how the O and the M are selected also. So when you right click on it, all the letters to the right of it will move with it. So I'm just going to move this a little bit closer to the dog. And I now would like to make the M taller. So in order to do that, I just clicked off on the screen just to deselect it. This time I'm going to left click on the M. Notice how it's only selected, only the M, and you have some different sizing handles you can use for this letter. So I'm going to drag this one up so it's about 99 millimeters or so. And I also want to bring it below the baseline, and in order to do that you need to click and hold the control key and left click on that purple diamond, and you can move the letter anywhere you want on your design space. I'm going to move it just below the baseline and just under the O. I'm going to repeat the same thing with the D. I left click, we're going to drag it up so it's about 99 millimeters. And I'm going to drop it below the baseline by clicking and holding the control key and dropping it below. Now we're ready to create the tack down line and the placement line for our first layer of fabric, the background layer. So I'm going to select the text, and sometimes if it doesn't select, if it didn't release the last tool, you need to use the escape key. And I now know that I've selected it because it's got the black box. We'll come over and use our favorite create outlines and offsets. This time I'm going to uncheck outlines and select offsets. I would like a 10 millimeter offset running around the outer edge of our text. I want a single run. I also want it to be a separate color so we can tell if it's a placement or tack down line, and make sure the include holes is not selected. And this corner option is what I want you to use, the round corner, so that the offset will create a nice curved shapes following the letter. So we'll click OK with that. So this will be our placement line for the first layer of fabric. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to create the tack down line from this. And we'll go back to create outlines and offsets. And this time I want to use a negative 2.5 millimeter offset. I'm going to have it a triple run because I like the stitching just to stand out a little bit more on the raw edge applique. And we will change the color to a different color, and we do not want to include holes, but we'll keep the corners the same. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to fine-tune the triple run just a little bit, and under object properties I'm going to change the length to 3 millimeters, and I'm going to turn off the variable run length for this, and it's just a nice smooth outline for your placement stitch. Now we're ready to create the second applique. So I'm going to take the dog mom and I'm going to drop it to the bottom of the sequence stalker, because the tack down, the placement line will stitch first, then the tack down line. So now we're ready for the new fabric that's going to go over top. So I have the text selected. We'll go to create outlines and offsets. This time I want to have a 2 millimeter offset. We will have a single run, and you can select a new color. So this will be the placement line, and I do want to include holes with this. And the reason being is when you trim away your fabric after the tack down line, you also want to trim away some of these inner areas if the space is large enough. Notice how they did not generate a little offset inside the G because it was too small to actually create an offset. This one, in my opinion, is too small too. So I'm just going to simply delete this little offset right here and keep the rest. So this will be our placement for the second fabric. I'm going to select Dog Mom one more time and come back to outlines and offsets. This time we're going to uncheck out offsets, tongue twister, and we're going to go back to using an outline. We'll have it a triple stitch because it's going to be the placement stitch, and make sure you have it set at a different color. We'll say OK, and I'm going to select that and drop that at the bottom of the sequence because we want the tack down to go after the placement stitch. And for the variable run, we're going to leave that checked, but I'm going to increase the minimum length to 1.5, so it's just a little bit larger. So now we have the placement line, the tack down line, the placement line, the tack down line. We don't need the text anymore. We were only using it as a template to create these different offsets. So you can simply delete that text right now, and you're left with your entire design. So you can save this as your EMB file and in your favorite machine file format. If you have a cutting machine, here's what's really awesome about Hatch is you can create SVGs from these closed shapes, and that's what we're going to do for the two placement lines of our applique. So we're going to select the first one, and you can hold down the control key and select the second placement line. And if you come over to Files and click Export to Cutting, you can navigate to where you want to save this SVG file on your computer, and you can name it. So I'll just put Dog Mom, and I'm going to hit Export. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this is what, there's two options up here. You want to select Export Selected Objects Only, because if I had the whole current design, you would get the placement and the tack down. So always be sure when you're doing this double edge applique to have only Export Selected Objects Only. That's why we only selected these two. So you're going to get two separate SVG files. So you'll select Export. I've used this name before on my samples, so Dog Mom. So when you go to your cutting software, you will open that file up. You'll have heat and bond light fused to the back of your fabric, and you're going to cut out your design. So then when you're stitching, you'll actually stitch the placement line, and then you will lay down the first background and fuse it in place and stitch the tack down line, and you will repeat that with the second one. And I'll show you in a quick video of the sequence. If you don't have a cutting machine, you would just simply trim the fabric away after you sewed the tack down line.